Hello, everyone. It's another beautiful day, another beautiful episode as well on the show, Control or Be Controlled. This podcast is designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And as always, I remain your host, Darlington. Today's guest is Ransom Kong, facilitator, educator, and founder of Purpose Over Pain and Tethered, platforms dedicated to helping men move beyond anger, emotional wounds, and destructive patterns towards healing and healthier relationships. Ransom, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here. Control, be controlled. I love this title of your podcast, and thank you for that warm introduction, Darlington.
So I said, one of the core things we are building is purpose over pain and helping men to overcome anger. So looking at you, Ransom, you look like someone who gets angry easily. Am I right?
Actually, no. You're talking to the wrong person at the wrong time. If you were talking with me when I was probably not 8 till 30, 32, then yeah, you'd be talking
so
to
I think
the
I
angry
made the
person.
wrong thing. I should have said you look like someone who used to, right?
Oh, who used to? Yes. Yes. But yes. Yeah, before I did the interplay.
All right, nice.
Yeah.
So after 27 years of working with men involved in anger management and domestic violence, what patterns have you noticed beneath the anger and aggression?
Great question. What's underneath the anger and aggression? Well, there's the attitude that I don't measure up, I'm not enough. There's 3 emotions that I see most often. One is hurt. The second is shame. And the third is fear. And with fear, it's the fear of the unknown, meaning I'm not quite sure about myself and I'm not sure how to proceed. And there's the fear of the known, like what am I doing now that's still wrecking my life and still I'm doing it. So there's that fear like I'm sabotaging myself to continue to do the destructive things that I'm accustomed to doing. There's even a fear of that because there's not that internal locus of control, that internal control, self-control. And the hurt because of people in their past, their memory past, their experiences, especially from childhood. I can dive down into that in a minute. And the shame because I'm not good enough. Look at the wreckage of my life and I try to perform and do, and it's not working. I don't feel like I'm accepted or belong with anyone. That I'm good enough, right? So if I go down into each emotion, right, I went a little bit into fear. The shame part is, and the hurt, is usually in the section of men that I help, is usually from their early childhood years, from conception to 2 years old, the first and initial identity that a person has that is perpetuated throughout their life until they do different things to change their lives. They have been raised in an environment that is unsafe. And without that safety given by caregivers that should be looking after them and making them feel secure and loved, they get the opposite of that. So it's a constant, like, I don't feel like I can connect with you emotionally. I don't feel like I can trust you because of the environment I'm in. And they develop these type of defense mechanisms, as I can dive down into. So these defense mechanisms is for survival. And they're always trying to perform in order to say, even though I don't feel loved, I want your love. I want your acceptance. And so they do whatever they can. They feel like it's conditional, although they think it's permanent. Conditional meaning like, I have to earn my love. If I do this, then I receive love. If I do that, then I don't have to feel shame because I belong to you. If I do this, then I'm accepted. And when we are on that type of mentality, it drains you because, again, you're always trying to measure up. It comes down to, I have to be perfect because that's the only way that I can feel this, or I can possibly feel this safety and trust with you and emotional warmth so that I can go on and live. Right? So that their hurt comes from not being taken care of. The shame comes from like not measuring up. And I already kind of went over fear. So those are three emotions that hide underneath anger. If you talk about I think you said the aggression. The anger is just expression many times, because people don't need to be angry to be violent, and they don't need to be violent to be angry. However, in this section of men, many of them are angry in order to express their violence, to release this energy that they feel inside so that they feel better. And it is a cover, a lid, so that they don't have to explore anything else. So anger is a convenient wrapper to hide underneath or hide from exploring any other things about them deeply, other emotions. And it also just perpetuates their violence, which they don't necessarily like, but there's, reasons why they do that. And if you want me to, I can dive down into that. So, yeah, thank you.
All right, Ransom. So many men are taught to express anger more easily than vulnerability. What is emotional fluency?
Another great question. Thank you, Darlington. Emotional fluency is, to me, a gift to yourself and to other people. The reason for that is because it's the ability to articulate more accurately and precisely what you're feeling inside, and to be able to express that to another person. When we do that, we're able to show the world or tell the world who we are. And the world, meaning a person right in front of me, could be able to relate and tell me about their world. It opens up emotional connection between people. So the mind accentuates feelings, and feelings drive behavior, and behavior reinforces thoughts and feelings. It's an independent and dynamic process. And when we are able to locate our emotions within our body, I might feel nervousness in my stomach. I might feel love in my heart. I might feel tension in my brain, or conflict in my brain. I might feel tension in my shoulders. These are all energy related because we are energy. So the ability to sit with oneself be aware and be able to label or name an emotion and the intensity of the emotion. I can feel low-level anger, which is frustration, along that spectrum all the way to fury or enragement. And that is not always easy to be able to name intensities of an emotion. Everyone can name the bucket, right? Mad, sad, glad, and fear. But to be able to articulate more in depth about your emotions, again, takes an awareness, and it's a skill that many people don't have, whether they're in my classes or not. So there's a phrase called vulnerability paradox. Have you heard of that before, Darlington? Okay, I'm going to assume that you haven't heard that. So the reason why we don't share is because we think other people will not trust our disclosure, that they'll throw it back in our face somehow, say that, why are you telling me something so personal? I don't have time for this. However, when we are sharing something to someone, what that says is that you are special. I am telling you something that I've never told anyone else. And that's what they feel. Wow, I'm special. You're telling me something that you haven't told anyone else. That brings about what we call the rule of self-disclosure, which is if I talk about something light, you talk about something light. If I talk about something heavy, you talk about something heavy. So the ability to be vulnerable, that vulnerability paradox, says that it is good to share something with the appropriate people in your inner circle of trust. Then that relationship can get even deeper. So, Darlington, I'd asked you a question, but I think something happened. So anyway, I continue to explain something.
All right, Ransom, thank you so much. So, what does genuine readiness for healthy relationship look like beyond simply saying I'm ready to change?
Yes. People think they're ready. Many times they're just performing. They're telling the other person, hey, I'm ready. This is what I can do. This is who I am. But really, it's a superficial level of us. When we're ready, right, we're going to give the person focused time. We're giving the person focused energy. We're going to be able to say that things like my career won't get in the way of me being in this relationship. Hobbies that I might like won't get in the way of the relationship. I have also the capacity to help the process in healing when there is a rupture in our relationship. Meaning, like, when we get into arguments, how long and how effectively do we actually resolve our conflict? That is like the most important thing in a relationship. Because in every relationship, it is a exchange of our perspectives, our point of views of this, and our feelings of the situation. And without being able to be open and have the vulnerability paradox, like I said, and express and create a dialogue so there's emotional connection, the relationship will ultimately fail. So especially those relationships where they're not able to resolve conflict. So again, that takes some skill and it takes a lot of will. No one comes fully formed that they can handle everything all at once, all the time. Nobody's perfect. However, having the base skills and the goodwill in order to be in a relationship and having the capacity, again, right, It's like, I want to be with you. I will give this relationship the proper amount of time and effort because this is how much I care for you. So that's what I believe are some of the things, the ingredients for a recipe for a good relationship.
All right, Ransom. What do you think most people commonly misunderstand about healing and personal growth?
Another great question. What do people misunderstand about healing and growth? It's not like fixing a pipe. It's not like something we get done. It's a continual process because human beings are so complex, and sometimes many times we complicate our lives and our relationships. There is a level of time for us to reflect upon ourselves that I don't think happens too often with many people. It's too much into being overstimulated and performing, and not enough time connecting with your emotions in the here and now, and also connecting to, the great expanse, like our nature and a power greater than us. And these things are needed because that helps us to balance. And so we think that we can fix everything really quick. And relationships are the most difficult difficult type of relationship versus a friendship or an acquaintanceship, to have that attitude. Because we're giving we're giving most of ourselves. The other person's doing the same thing. And we're very complex, dynamic human beings that we need this time to consistently dialogue about our perspectives, how we're feeling, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. It's called a intimate relationship for a reason. So that is really what's going on. That people think that problems are solved and then everything's well. When if you look at some research, couples argue about 67% of the time of things that they've argued about before that won't change. And just that fact alone, that people are arguing over the same things, means that there's a disconnect. There's a misunderstanding of the point of view of the other person. If someone is bringing up a topic a lot, it's not because it's actually something to be solved. It's just something to be acknowledged and validated in the other person, because maybe that feeling is running deep. And I can give examples, but that is about not recognizing what a relationship actually requires. It requires a consistent communication of what's going on inside of us, and to be open to the other person's perspective. Because when we validate that perspective, then it's a good start in continuing that conversation. And if it's a conflict, then to resolve that conflict.
All right. So you have your own story for breaking the cycle. Can you tell us what the turning point was for you that helped you recognize the need for change?
So I grew up in a family of domestic violence, as you know, or you probably assumed. There was a lot of survival techniques, like coping mechanisms, like I talked about before. And my siblings and I grew up in, a horrifying environment, never knowing when chaos was going to return. I carried that into my teens, recognized that I didn't want to be like my father, who was the culprit of a lot of this abuse, and did all I could to not be like my father. Got married, had children, and my former wife said, hey, I think our oldest child at that time was 2, maybe 3, is calling out for help. And she was, I guess, at her wit's end. And to make her feel better, I said, sure, get a therapist and go ahead and start taking him to it. I thought he was just being a boy and just, acting like how little boys do. When I played with him at home, it didn't seem like there was anything wrong with his behavior. After some sessions, she couldn't take him to the next one and asked me to do that, and I did. And what I saw through a one-way window was observing the therapist interacting with my son, and they had figurines and they're playing in sand, and that was the type of therapy to help kids that don't have a lot of verbal or linguistic ability. And he was like a caged animal. He was just playing really, really rough, like I've never seen him play with anything when I used to play with him and observe. So this therapist made the environment safe enough so that he could actually just let out his emotions through his play. I broke down when I talked to the therapist after. I believe my child was still doing some, just playing. And so I had this opportunity to talk to the therapist. And I decided to go to the therapist in addition to my son. So it was like a family affair, which is good. I needed that. And in one particular session, I remember that I was put under hypnosis and I started to scream at the top of my lungs till my voice was just hoarse. And I was flailing my arms and legs and just yelling out about a lot of things about killing my father and using a lot of profanity and name calling. And it was just me in another caged animal trying to release my emotions. And, that was a really sad time in my life on one end, because it was a deep realization that I had become a version of my father and my son was a version of me. And at that particular time, my young family, my then wife and myself were living with my mother and father. So my father was still very abusive. And it had an effect on all of us. Thankfully, we moved out of that place as soon as we could. But again, the damage was done. The deep realization and the deep brokenness that I felt was exposed. And that's good because it needed to be. I needed to know that there was a lot of work that I had to do. And it's a daily thing for me to just recognize who I am and how I want to express myself, to be truly free of violence and aggression and anger. Again, anger, I haven't said this, but we know anger is not a bad emotion. It's what you do with it. Unfortunately, when I was angry as a young man, I was very aggressive. So that I had to heal within.
All right. So here is my final question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one message you could give to a man listening right now who struggles with anger, shame, or emotional pain, what would you want him to hear?
That they're part of the human species, and that, like a multifaceted diamond, they have beautiful emotions, just like women. And the ability to have that emotional fluency will open up your life. And that anything and everything that you've done in the past is just awareness and learning. If you've done so many shameful things in your mind, just remember that you learned it. And what's more important is what you do from this point on and in the future. So having an attitude of self-compassion and being non-judgmental, the ability to zoom out and say, this is how I was and how I acted, and I can connect it to my learning, that's not really who I wanted to be, but was programmed early on to have these automatic thoughts, emotions, and behavior, which became habitual. And I don't have to really think about it. It just is. So being non-judgmental, self-compassionate to explore that so that you can use it as discernment for how you want to be now and in the future. And that's a wise person, right? To be able to look at themselves and be able to say, I can use anything and everything as a way to know who I am and who I want to be. So we can learn really early in life or throughout our life what we don't want, who we don't want to be. And that's really important. So all those, quote, shameful things you did, it's still learning. It's what you don't want to do and who you don't want to be. And that purpose, why I do what I do, is the pull factor to say, who do I want to be and what do I want to do? So again, what I would like the audience, your listeners, to take away from this is that nothing is wasted. You can be all that you really want to be based on everything you've experienced, and thank your experiences. For me, right, what I do it with passion. I do with more passion than when I started. And the reason for it is because I found my purpose. In a way, I'm a wounded healer. I help those because that have experienced something in the same realm of what I've experienced. And I have this deep compassion for them. And I want to continue helping. And I can only have that deep compassion from my experiences of who I didn't want to be and the things I didn't want to do. So just use it to your advantage, everything that you've done and who you are right now.
All right. Thank you so much, Ransom.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing a powerful perspective on healing, accountability, emotional awareness, and the journey towards becoming a healthier version of ourselves. Your work reminds us that behind every behavior is a story, and that transformation begins when we have the courage to face what is beneath the surface. So, for listeners who want to learn more about purpose over pain, tethered or connect with your work, where can they find you?
Thank you. For those that want to do the inner work, inner play, purpose over pain, .life is a great way to start. There are some free tools there. And for those who have continued or have done a lot of work and are ready for a relationship, go to Come Tethered. So join with me, come over here and join with me, cometethered.com. And again, no one is fully formed. It's a process. But if you have the capacity to enter a relationship, so there's a foundation and sustainable for the future, go to cometethered.com. And I'm also on 4 social media platforms: X, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
All right, Aaron. So once again, thank you so much, and do have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, Darlington. Thank you for having me in on your show, and it's been a pleasure.
All
Aloha
right.
to all your audience.
Okay. Thank you so much, my audience, for also tuning in, taking out your time to be here with us.